The story begins with Jin, who, after graduating, stayed working at the university library and, together with two friends, opened a small cafe nearby. And while she is working, her coworker is looking at photos of the new professor and seeing how serious he looks. They start making fun of him, calling him intimidating without realizing he is actually listening. And when she notices him, she chokes on her drink, but he quickly hides behind a book, so embarrassed she apologizes. And later at the cafe, one of the employees is crying because her boyfriend left her. And then one of Jin's friends appears, an expert in relationships, comforting the girl and telling her that if he was the one who decided to end things, then he is not worth waiting for. And then the second friend arrives, who is a doctor. And after hearing what happened with the employee, she says that maybe it was Chen, the university professor who is known as a womanizer. And later, when Jin returns home, she finds her mother cooking. And during the meal, her mother says her teeth look strange and almost drags her to the dentist. And just when they arrive, she sees the same employee crying in front of the hospital while Chen is returning her things. And when they enter the consultation, the doctor tells her that before treatment, she has to remove 2 molars, and she begs her mother to leave, but her mother insists it is nothing serious. And fortunately, the doctor says he cannot do the extraction that day and they need to schedule another appointment. And on the way back home, she runs into an old woman who suddenly falls to the ground and accuses her of pushing her. And the woman grabs her leg like a scammer. And even though she tries to get away, the old woman faints. And scared, she tries to revive her, but does not do it properly. And suddenly, Chen appears and tells her to step aside so he can treat her correctly. And when the ambulance arrives, he thanks her intention to help and tells her she must learn the proper resuscitation technique because she did it wrong. But suddenly, the old woman wakes up and accuses her of hitting her. So Chen forces her to go along and take responsibility. And at the hospital, her doctor friend tells her the woman is stable and also that she is known there because she always fakes accidents to make others pay her bills. But even so, Chen insists that she must take responsibility and apologize, and furious, she pays the bill, and when she returns, she says, "I already paid, but I will not apologize. I hope I never see you again." And he calmly replies, "Then what are you doing here? Leave." And with her heart full of anger, she walks away, wishing she could tear his eyes out with her own hands. And as if the day could not get worse, the bus is crowded and she almost falls. And then it starts raining. She runs to take shelter with some girls and they tell her she dropped her card, and when she picks it up, she sees Chen approaching with his umbrella, and he tells her he came to apologize because he realized he was unfair, and she answers that it was not necessary for him to come, just for that. But Chen says he was just passing by, and right when it seems he will take her in his car, he says, "I have things to do. I cannot stay." But he leaves her his umbrella, and she watches him confused as he walks away. And before continuing, a special greeting is sent to some people, and thanks are given for supporting the channel. And now the story continues. And the next day, she goes with her mother to the hospital to remove her tooth. But the dentist is not there, and since she is treated by an inexperienced intern during the extraction, he hurts her. And to avoid mistakes, he asks his teacher for help, who turns out to be Chen. And he first treats the wound and explains to the other interns that she was resisting the anesthesia, and then he removes the tooth easily without her feeling anything. And even she is surprised, and later when everyone leaves, she tells him, "Do you remember me? Because of you, I had to pay the hospital bill and I was left without a single coin." But he only replies, "Silence, stop talking so much." And then her friend had a problem and could not miss class, so she asked Jin to cover for her. And to her surprise, Chen turns out to be the professor. And when he starts taking attendance, she changes her voice so he will not recognize her. But he notices and pretends not to know her and asks her to remove her cap because it is forbidden in class. And during the whole class, she feels uncomfortable and wants to escape. And she tries to leave through the back door, but as soon as she opens it, he says, "Go back to your seat. Anyone who enters does not leave early." And she has to return to her chair. And when class ends, she approaches him angrily and says, "You know I do not study here. Why did you not let me leave?" And he replies that if her friend asked her for a favor, she must complete it until the end without looking for an easy way out. And later in the library, she is with her coworker when Chen arrives looking for a book. And her coworker, seeing how handsome he is, immediately becomes interested. Her coworker took out her phone and started taking pictures of him. And our girl whispered, "Stop, he's going to notice us." But her friend left the phone on the table and went to look for something. And Chen walked over asking for a book he couldn't find. And she picked up her friend's phone to help him, but it opened right on his photo. And she got nervous and quickly said, "I swear we were just testing the camera. The phone is new and we didn't know how to use it." But he didn't care and simply said, "Then help me find the book." And just then her friend came back offering him candy, and Chen reminded her that it would damage her teeth, but she replied that her teeth could handle anything. So Chen lightly tapped her molar and she screamed in pain, making everyone in the library turn to look. And when he left, one of his many fans gave him a bubble tea, and he accepted it and went straight to give it to our girl, making her very happy. But when she took a sip, she started complaining about the pain. And Chen said, "Didn't you say your teeth could handle everything?" And later, while having lunch with her friends, she mentioned that Chen wasn't as bad as everyone said, that maybe he wasn't that cold heartbreaker without feelings. But her friend warned her, "You better not become his next victim and then come crying." And her other friend added, "No man can be trusted. They all take what they want and then leave." And at that moment, Buddy, her childhood friend who was like a brother to all of them, arrived and started defending men, saying, "Not all are the same," which caused a small commotion. And the next day, she went to the hospital to get her braces. And this time, she was directly treated by Chen. She was very nervous, so he offered to play music. And that helped her relax, and everything went perfectly because she didn't feel anything. And when she left the hospital, it started raining. And Chen regretted not bringing his umbrella because he would have offered it to her. But before he could say anything more, she said goodbye with a smile and ran under the rain. And the next day at the university, his aunt came to greet him and suddenly grabbed his cheeks affectionately, making him feel embarrassed because he was a very serious professor. But in reality, his aunt came with a purpose. She wanted him to meet the son of her friend, a young man who had just entered the medical faculty and needed some guidance. And meanwhile, our girl was traveling to a mountain area where she had a family gathering. And since she arrived early, she decided to pass the time looking around and buying things in the shops. And later, her cousin called to say she couldn't pick her up because she was late due to traffic, and scared she walked until she found a guard, and he told her there would be no buses until the next day, and trying to help, said that a car would soon come down the mountain and she should be ready to ask for a ride. But unfortunately, it started snowing and the car passed her, so she ran after it shouting, and luckily the car stopped, and the driver was none other than Chen, looking more handsome than ever, like he came straight out of a Korean drama, leaving her speechless. And during the ride, both were nervous and didn't say a word, so Chen turned on the radio to listen to horror stories, and since she was easily scared, she started imagining nonsense. And suddenly, Chen stopped the car to take a call related to a patient, which made her see him as someone reliable, someone who truly cared about his patients. And then they continued to cross the mountain, but the car got stuck in the snow. So they started walking, and suddenly her braces began to bother her, and he got closer to adjust them a little, and she noticed his hands were too warm. He must have had a fever, so she gave him her bunny hat since she had bought an extra one at the shop. And when they reached the hotel, he told her he had to return to the hospital, but she worried about the cold and went to get something to warm him up. And when she came back, he was gone, so she quickly went out to look for him. But on the way, she felt someone following her and started shouting, "Stay away from me!" But it was Chen who asked her to take him back to the hotel because he felt very bad and couldn't return to the hospital like that. And to her surprise, there were no rooms available. So she let him stay in her room. She was nervous, but he lay down saying, "Don't worry, I'm so tired I wouldn't be able to do anything." But the real problem came when her cousin knocked on the door, and she quickly hid under the blanket. And when her cousin entered, she started walking around the bed. And just when she was about to lift the blanket, she said, "I'm tired. Let me sleep." So her cousin left. And then she saw Chen lying face down without moving and thought something had happened to him. And frightened, she froze for a moment, not knowing what to do next. She started giving him CPR, and he suddenly burst out laughing. So between fear and anger, she shouted that he was evil for scaring her like that. And the next morning, she woke up and kept staring at him. But then she remembered breakfast and ran out. And at the buffet, she started taking 2 portions of everything so they could eat together. But her cousin noticed she was taking extra food and asked, "Who is all that food for?" And she pretended not to hear and ran off without realizing her cousin was following her. And then her cousin confronted her saying, "You've definitely had a man with you since yesterday and now you're acting innocent." But at that moment, they heard screams. And her little cousin had fallen down the stairs and a nail got stuck in his mouth, so she ran to get Chen to help him. And thank God he managed to remove the nail and treat him. And the whole family thanked him for saving the boy. And later in the family group, everyone started talking about how handsome Chen was and saying he was surely her boyfriend. And then they all said, "How shameless, you spent the night together." And even though the 2 of them tried to explain, nobody listened. And everyone assumed their wedding must be close. And later when she went downstairs to say goodbye, she ran into Chen's aunt, who asked if he had spent the night with her. And nervous, she introduced herself and tried to explain, but the aunt was delighted, saying she liked her very much and wanted her to marry her nephew. And Chen, completely embarrassed, pulled her away before she could say even more. And after that, she got a call from the cafe employee, who begged her to go to the Bridge of Locks, the place where couples leave one while swearing eternal love. And since she had broken up with her boyfriend, she did not have the courage to destroy it. And when our girl arrived, she began looking for it, and suddenly Chen appeared searching for the same one. And she got angry because she thought he could not remember where he had placed the lock with his ex-girlfriend, leaving him shocked. But when they finally found it, the names engraved on it were the girl's name and someone called Jin, and it turned out to be Chen's apprentice. So she apologized because she had misunderstood everything, and then they decided to climb the mountain. And when they reached the top, the view was beautiful, and they shared a peaceful moment together. And the next day when he went to the library, her coworker asked him, "Are you looking for a book or a person?" And he did not know what to say. So the girl told him something important. She has a date today at 5, and even gave him the restaurant address. And at the restaurant, she was sitting with a man who was far too pushy. And since she felt uncomfortable, she decided to go to the bathroom. And at that moment, our guy arrived with his apprentice, looking around to see who she was with. And then he went to find her and saw her talking to her mother on the phone. And he asked if that was a date. And she answered no, that everything had been arranged by her mother. And later he heard they were going to the movies. So to avoid leaving them alone, he sneaked in with his apprentice to watch the same film. And halfway through the movie, she felt cold. So the guy took off his jacket to cover her, which made Chen jealous. And his apprentice understood the situation and stepped on the end of the jacket so it would fall to the floor. And that gave Chen the chance to offer her his own jacket. And when the movie ended, they all met outside and both men offered to take her home. But to escape the awkward situation, she said she was meeting a friend and left. And when she returned home, he saw her walking and offered to drive her, which she happily accepted. And on the way, she got hungry. So they stopped to eat. And she asked him why he did not have WeChat. And he explained that he was not very social. So she decided to create an account for him and asked what photo he wanted to use. And he told her to choose one she liked. And when he stood up, she took a photo of him and made it his profile picture. And later he drove her home. But when they arrived, they found Buddy waiting for her. And annoyed, Buddy asked who that man was. And nervous, she said he was her dentist. And to make things worse, it turned out the two men had gone to the same university, so there was some kind of rivalry between them. And the next day, she went to the hospital for her appointment. And there she saw a couple with their sick daughter. But they did not have an appointment because they had not booked one, and she wanted to help them. But then the pushy guy appeared, asking why she wanted to give up her turn. And surprised, she asked how he had found her. And he replied that her mother had told him, but she ignored him and took the little girl to Chen so he could treat her. And while they were waiting, the man kept saying that Chen gave him a bad feeling. And she told him not to speak badly about someone he did not know. And out of curiosity, the man went to ask the nurse what relationship she had with Chen. And the confused nurse answered, he is her dentist and fiancé. And upset, he left while calling his mother to tell her to find him another fiancé. And later, while they were eating at the clinic, she told Chen that her family had invited him to lunch as thanks for saving her little cousin. But if he did not want to go, she would make up an excuse. But he told her yes. As long as she was going, there was no problem. And that night, after spending time with her family and being made to drink until he was drunk, she accompanied him home, and Chen asked if she knew how to drive, and she said no, just to joke around. And the next day, she sent him a message asking if he was free on New Year's, and they agreed to meet. And when they met while taking pictures, they ran into her friend and Chen's apprentice, and then they all went to play target shooting to win stuffed toys, but the guys could not hit the target. So she and her friend told them to step aside, and on the first try, they hit the mark. And when she got home, her mother saw her with Chen, said nothing, and went upstairs very angry. And once inside the house, she confronted her and scolded her for rejecting the rich suitor she had chosen for her. And she tried to explain that he was rude, but her mother insisted that she had to accept the marriage for the good of both of them. And angry, she accused her mother of wanting to use her to secure her own future. And her furious mother slapped her and walked away, and our girl ran after her. But when she saw Chen, she turned her face so he would not notice she had been crying. And worried, he went to get medicine to treat her injuries, and then they went to drink something so she could calm down and tell him what had happened. And later, drunk, she almost dragged him by force to the cafe, and he wanted her to lie down and rest. But because of the alcohol, she threw a tantrum and ended up kissing him. And the next day, she left him a note saying that if his head hurt, he should drink honey water and not forget to brush his teeth. But she did not remember anything that had happened the night before, and he could not get the kiss out of his mind. And since he did not have the courage to write to her, he decided to go to the library. But he also did not have the courage to go inside. And later in the library, her friend told her that Chen had been walking around outside for an hour, and she went to see what was happening. But embarrassed, he would not admit he had come to see her and just said he was getting some air. And later at the cafe, they had a problem because spoons and glasses had been stolen. So to find the culprit, they decided to check the cameras. And there they saw the video of her kissing Chen. And shocked, she said, "My first kiss was stolen." And her friend answered, "Stolen? You were the one who gave it." And that night he was ready to rest. But while checking her stories, he realized she was at a nightclub with her friends, and afraid she might meet someone else, he went to find her. But when they met, he pretended it was a coincidence and offered to take her home. And in the car, they were listening to the radio where someone said he had fallen in love. But his confession was not taken seriously because he had made no effort to prove his feelings. And then the host asked what the listeners thought, and she commented that lately men made no effort at all. They only said they liked a girl and nothing more. And because of that, it was hard for girls to trust. And he felt she was right and decided to act in a way that would win her heart. And later, she traveled with her friend for the presentation of her new and first book. And without delay, Chen went to the bookstore to buy that first book. And once home, he started reading it and noticed that part of the story was based on her life. And there she told the story of a girl who always saw her parents arguing until one day they hired a tutor to help her with math. And the boy was very handsome and gentle. And little by little, she fell in love with him. and on the way back home, she was asleep. But her friends woke her up with shocking news. Her old love had sent her a message saying he had come back and wanted to see her, which made her nervous. And somewhere else, a man named Yoon came to visit Chen because they had both been friends since university, and Yoon told him he had returned from abroad because of a girl and invited him to have dinner together on Saturday. And then Chen kept reading the book, and in that part, her parents were getting divorced, fighting over who she should live with. And then the boy appeared and told them they were selfish because they were not thinking about her. And he took her hand to lead her away, but noticed she was trembling with fear, so he covered her hand with his clothes and said, "Can you hold my sleeve until you feel safe?" And she was nervous because she was going to see him again after so many years. And suddenly June said, "I can't believe how beautiful you are." And when he introduced his best friend, our protagonist appeared, and things instantly became tense. And honestly, the whole air smelled of jealousy and tension. And to make it worse, June gave her a gift in a little box, and Chen feared it might be an engagement ring. But in the end, it was a necklace with a key, and June told her it looked beautiful on her. But Chen, annoyed, said, "It's not pretty, it looks very ordinary." And she started to feel everything falling apart. So she said, "Oh, wow, the weather is so nice," even though, in truth, she had no idea how to escape that place. And from then on, the relationship between our girl and Chen became cold and distant. And days later, a group of friends went skiing together and shared many fun moments. And at night, they started drinking and playing dares, and June raised his hand saying that he loved someone in the group. And then Chen did the same, shocking everyone, so he pretended to be drunk and fell asleep. And later, when she returned to her room, she saw the door open, and curious, she went in and noticed Chen had fallen asleep, so she covered him so he would not catch cold, and when she was about to turn off the lamp, she leaned close, which he used as the chance to kiss her. And shocked, she ran out, and at breakfast, they were both uncomfortable, and on the way home, they had to sit together, but they did not say a single word. And later, Yoon took our girl to see her mother, and after a long conversation, they solved their problems. And after that, the three of them went to celebrate Chinese New Year with June's family. And when they were alone, he told her that he knew about her feelings for Chen because it was obvious in her eyes. And he also knew that she saw him as a lifelong friend, and he would respect that because she deserved to be happy. And then she received a call from Chen, and she answered wishing him a happy new year, but he went straight to the point. "Is your heart with me or with someone else?" Wow. And she stayed silent. And he hung up because for him, her silence was a rejection, and his eyes filled with tears. But she was only confused and did not know how to handle the situation. And the next day, when she went to the hospital, she heard that Chen had been chosen as a volunteer to go to Africa, and she went in to ask him if it was true and begged him not to go, but he was determined to leave, and then she felt that maybe he did not love her, that he was running away because he did not love her, and devastated, she rode her bicycle while thinking about everything that had happened. But suddenly, she crashed and hit herself so hard that she lost consciousness. And the people nearby called Chen because he was listed as her emergency contact, and he ran to help her and took her to the hospital. And the doctor said her wounds needed stitches, and she started to wake up and tried to touch them. But Chen stopped her, worried about the risk of infection. And instead, he held her hand through the whole procedure so she would not be afraid. And the next day, she woke up thirsty and went to drink water wearing only his shirt, not knowing Chen was sitting in the living room. And when she saw him, she ran back to her room embarrassed. And after a while, she came out wearing shorts and he was cooking. And although she tried to act normal, he told her she did not need to pretend. And then when she tried to speak, one of her wounds opened again, and he came closer to treat it and said, "The day I asked if I had a place in your heart, I was waiting for an answer. But even without one, I still plan to take that place." And without another word, he leaned in and kissed her gently. And after that, they went to the airport to say goodbye to June, who was returning to the United States. And Chen helped him with the luggage and left them alone so they could say goodbye because they were lifelong friends and he respected their space. And she encouraged June to keep working abroad because she knew he was strong. And in return, he told her she was with the right person, that Chen was a man who would take very good care of her. And then they all said goodbye and he ran so he would not miss his flight. And one day, our girl removed the bandage from her cut because it had already healed. And she was texting Chen for the 1,000th time that day, jumping with excitement because he was now her boyfriend and she could talk to him freely. But suddenly water started dripping from the ceiling. And later the landlady told her it would take days to repair it. So she thought about sleeping at her friend's house. But Chen told her, "Why sleep somewhere else when you have a boyfriend? Are you going to sleep with me?" And when they arrived, there was a guest at the house, and they told her she was a doctor who was also going to Africa, and everyone wanted to match Chen with her. So our girl felt uncomfortable and thought about leaving, but Chen held her hand and told them, "I want to introduce my girlfriend." And even though everyone was shocked at first, they ended up liking her and sent the doctor away. And during dinner, our girl tried to eat slowly, acting like a delicate little lady, but that act came back to punish her that night because she got terribly hungry and could not sleep. And Chen, who knew her well, called her and asked, "You're hungry, right? What do you want to eat?" And she did not even take a minute to run to his room and tell him, "What if we do something we've never done before?" And he, surprised, tried to stay calm and told her they could not because they were in his family's house, but it turned out she only wanted to go out and eat fish together because she was shameless like that. And the next day they went out running together and Chen was already exhausted, but she told him to keep going because he had to take care of his health before leaving for Africa. And at first, she had not wanted him to go, but now she understood that he could save lives and that it was his duty. So Chen carried her on his back and kept running. And later she went out with her friends and drank so much that she got completely drunk. And when Chen came to pick her up, she hugged him tightly and said, "Don't leave me. I love you." And meanwhile, her mother had gone to see her and found out the roof was being repaired, so she asked the landlady for the address where her daughter was staying. But then she saw her arriving completely drunk, and the mother grabbed her arm and said, "You're coming with me. I'm not leaving you here." But she refused and said, "I'm with someone I love," and pointed at Chen. And after leaving her to rest, he offered to take the woman home, and on the way, she began questioning him to see if he was really a good match for her daughter, and she asked whether he truly loved her and whether he had ever been with anyone before, and he answered no, that he had never been with anyone, that he had always waited for the person who would win his heart. And when he met her, she completely changed his life. And the next day, they had breakfast with his family, calm and happy, even holding hands under the table. And that night, they slept together and talked about how they would survive the distance, and she also did not want to sleep because every second felt precious, and she did not want to waste any of it. And the next day, she went with him to the airport, and it was a very painful goodbye, and Chen called her on the phone when he saw her standing far away and said, "Come on, don't just stand there." And she walked away crying, already missing him from that exact moment. And as the days passed, she made sure to talk to him every chance she got until her friend's wedding arrived, and the three girls were dressed in white, each one with her partner except for our protagonist, who was alone, completely alone, with no one by her side. And later, her library coworker asked her to cover for her and to distract herself. She started arranging books, but she lost her balance, and to avoid falling, she pushed the shelves and caused a huge mess. And frightened, she bent down to pick up the books, but then Chen appeared from there, and excited, she hugged him and said she had missed him, and he told her he had wanted to surprise her, that during his trip he had felt an enormous emptiness without her, and then he asked her to open a book, and inside there was a ring, and Chen confessed how deeply he loved her, saying that she had changed his life from the moment he met her, and then he placed the ring on her finger and asked her to marry him, and without the slightest hesitation she accepted, bringing this beautiful love story to an end.